Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Purdue Series Recap. You got Chris, you got Nick, you got Austin. It's time to talk Purdue and Ole Miss right here on the Rebel Walk. Now, first of all, let me just apologize on the front end. I look different than everybody else. I just got finished. Well, not really finished. We're still in the process of moving into a new home. So a lot of things going on for me right now. So I have no backdrop. I have no polos over here yet. So I'm looking a little different. So y'all will just forgive my plain background and plain appearance today. That will be remedied by next weekend, I promise you. But that's all comes in due time. I hate moving; it is a pain, but it's going to be worth it in the long run. But Ole Miss just finished off a sweep over the Purdue Boilermakers to improve to 14-2 overall, but also 8-1 against the Big Ten. So they're probably leading the Big Ten. I haven't checked the Big Ten standings, but 8-1 seems pretty good for any league standings this early in the season. But another great offensive weekend for Ole Miss. A lot of that coming in the clutch moments, and we'll talk about that a little later. But first of all, Chris, we're going to start with you because I know that you've really been studying the pitching stats in this series in particular. But the pitching was, for the most part, phenomenal. Obviously, Xavier Rivas with his longest outing of the season so far today. Chris, I know you've been looking at it as a whole, but Ole Miss pitching very much improved this weekend. And moving forward, hopefully it'll continue to be that way.
Yeah, overall, really great weekend for the starters, especially, and the bullpen guys as well. Both sets of pitchers did a really phenomenal job. From an overall season perspective, we went I'm just looking at the weekends. So on the weekends, we went 8-1 from a starter's perspective. So I thought that was really good. The other thing about it, and Nick will get more into it with the hitters, but we're really never out of a ball game right now, in my opinion. So even though we've had some runs, some ERA stuff that's happened, and Rivas actually had his ERA go down around 2 runs today with his 1-run performance, 6 hits, I believe it was. So good for Xavier. Got his ERA down a little bit, but 4-0 for Rivas on the young season. Jack Doherty's 2-1. Grayson's 1-0, and then Hunter, obviously, in his first start went 1-0. So 8-1 overall. So really impressed by the starting pitchers, and then the bullpen guys have really held things down a little bit.
Yeah, and overall, I mean, today in particular, the amount of jams that Ole Miss got into and then worked themselves out of with that pitching staff was fantastic. I believe it was back-to-back innings. Purdue had the bases loaded, and in the second of those 2 innings, they had just 1 out with the bases loaded, and Ole Miss was able to escape without allowing any damage in either of those innings from those situations. So that is huge for the confidence of these guys going forward. You've got so many freshmen coming in. JT Quinn has been a weeknight starter. Well, today he comes in out of the bullpen and takes over. And on that note, that will leave Vera as the starter for Tuesday night. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show, but JT Quinn will not be starting on Tuesday. But as Chris alluded to, Nick has been focusing on the hitting side of things. So the pitching was phenomenal. Pitching wins ball games. You got to have good pitching. On the flip side of that, you have to score more runs than the other team. And Ole Miss did a lot of that this weekend. Nick, I know you've been looking at kind of the overall numbers on the hitting, and boy, was it good in particular this weekend. But Nick, go ahead with what you got there for the hitting stats for us so far.
Yeah, I thought it was a good weekend overall. Maybe a little bit less than we're used to in game 2, but we found a way to win that 1-run ball game. Where the pitching kind of helped us out. And kind of held Purdue, kind of back and forth. But yeah, just overall, I was looking at the stats, and 7 of our 9 hitters, starters, their batting average with runners in scoring position is better than their overall batting average. So when these guys are getting up, they're getting hits with runners in scoring position and doing what they're asked to do. And you see there a little bit Kemp Alderman, they wouldn't even pitch him, and that's what he was doing so well all weekend, and they're kind of just pitching around him. And, with 2 outs, we're 52 of the 149 RBIs have come with 2 outs. So that's 35%. I haven't looked, it's not super easy to find those kind of deeper stats in college baseball where it's a little bit easier in the major leagues. But I'd have to imagine that's pretty close to the top in the country. So yeah, just and we have most of the games we've won all year have been, by pretty big margins. So the pitching has done their job, but the offense has just kind of made it really easy on the pitching staff.
Yeah, and as go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, my question marks moving into the conference play are going to be the amount of walks that we're allowing and the amount of home runs that we're allowing. So, Rivas has been touched up with 5 home runs, Grayson with 4, and then from a walk perspective between the two of them, 24 combined. But on the flip side of that, we're getting a lot of strikeouts out of a lot of guys. So Doherty's got 21 strikeouts. Saulnier's got 21 strikeouts. Rivas leads the club with 23 strikeouts, and out of the bullpen, Tekoyan's got 20 strikeouts. So really, really impressive numbers from a strikeout perspective.
Yeah, and as you alluded to, Ole Miss has walked 40 batters so far this season. They've allowed 8 home runs, which when you look at the game so far, right, you've played 16 games. Well, you've allowed at least 1 home run in half those games if you average it out. So obviously the pitching is young. We're not used to seeing I say that's just from the starters' perspective. That's from the bullpens. Let me clarify. That's just the starters have allowed 40 walks and 8 home runs. I haven't had a chance to check deep into the bullpen stats on that yet, but that is important to get that more solidified. I guess you want to have better pitching as for when it comes to the walks. A lot of full counts we're seeing this season out of Ole Miss pitchers. We're not used to seeing quite that many. On the flip side of that, however, they have struck out 81. So 81 strikeouts to 40 walks is a pretty good ratio from your starters, especially considering the fact that 2 of the 3 starters, probably going to be 3 of the 3 based on the results with Hunter Elliott for a large part of the season, haven't seen a lot of in-game action as a starter role. Jack Doherty has seen a lot of action, but as a full-time starter, he's been kind of off and on in that role. So really looking forward to seeing what he brings to the table and if he can kind of stabilize that starting pitching staff, because they're going to need that leadership with Saulnier and Rivas coming on Saturdays and Sundays so far. But overall, very impressed with all that. Kemp Alderman had a 10-game hitting streak come to an end today because Purdue wouldn't pitch to him, including intentionally walking him a couple of times. That's just how it goes in the game of baseball. When you burn a team that much, they're not going to want anything to do with you. And that's just how it goes. I don't think Kemp is probably thinking about that too much. I'm sure he would have liked to swing the bat a couple of times, but I don't think he's really thinking about the hit streak overall. But as for us, it was frustrating to watch because he's got that hit streak going and you want to see him swing the bat a little bit. But you mentioned it, Nick, and Chris, you alluded to it. The 2 out RBIs have been huge for Ole Miss this season, and the hitting with runners in scoring position. And I know, Nick, you texted us about this, but 7 of the batters in the starting lineup for Ole Miss are hitting better with runners in scoring position than their overall average, which is amazing when you consider that last year we kind of felt like we were leaving a lot of runners on base. So when you look at that this year on the flip side, Chris alluded to this in one of our earlier shows, there hasn't been a lot of drop-off offensively considering the amount of talent that Ole Miss lost last season. You guys saw, Chris, you could start this one on the 2-out hitting and the runners in scoring position, how well they're doing this season, particularly with the turnover in the lineup.
Yeah, just phenomenal job by their, it was a plug-and-play situation. And I talked to one of the managers before the season started, and he said, hey, this is a reload year, not a rebuild year. And obviously we've seen that come to fruition early on in this, before conference play. So I've been really impressed top to bottom. Kendall Rogers was interviewed by one of the NCAA people earlier this week, and he described the lineup as lethal. And I would agree with Kendall in that. I mean, you can't really disagree with Kendall Rogers anyway, but I do agree with him that, top to bottom, you look at even Leger today had a just outstanding game, and he's our 9-hole guy. If our 9-hole guy can put that together on a regular basis or semi-regular basis even, it's a problem. And it's a problem for the other dugout from a pitching perspective. And we're going to see that come to fruition come conference play, which obviously is next week.
Yeah, it snuck up on us in a hurry. It's hard to believe we are already almost to conference play. But, man, what a fun start it's going to be. But before that, we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves. We still got other things to talk about because, Nick, I know it was probably really difficult for you again, and I say that with a little bit of sarcasm, to come up with a player of the weekend. But it's now time for Nick to reveal, I know it's going to be a great shock to all of you, the player of the weekend. All right, Nick, I know we're all on the edge of our seat wondering who you might have picked, but go ahead and give us who's the player of the weekend this weekend.
Yeah, no surprises here. It's Kemp Alderman. He went 5 for 8 with 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, and 0 for 4, not 0 for 4, 0 for 0 today with 4 walks. They I don't think it was only one strike they threw him, and it was a 3-0 count. But yeah, he's just and watching his interviews after the games with the media both nights, just how much he's matured as not only a baseball player, but a person. You can really tell, when he was a freshman, he didn't get much playing time. I think it was that one game, and we saw kind of a glimpse of what he had that LSU game when he hit that walk-off home run. And he's just really, like I said, again, matured as a hitter. He's not, just swinging for the fences. He can spray it around the field. You saw that walk-off home run yesterday was opposite field line drive. Barely got over the fence, but that's all that mattered. It got over the fence, and he's hitting the ball harder than anyone I've ever seen hit the ball. And it's just amazing to see, the weekend that he had. And today, I was watching something earlier in the week, and, a baseball player said, I want the other team, I want to be a problem. And he was a problem for Purdue. He was a big problem for Purdue this weekend. And yeah, just easy pick. The last 2 weeks, it's been kind of a harder pick, but I think I texted y'all yesterday. It was clear and who it would be. Even if he went 0 for 4 today, he probably would have still been the player of the weekend.
Chris, your thoughts?
Yeah, 118 off the bat yesterday, I think it was. 112 was the Oppo Taco. So really great weekend for Kemp. Another guy that had a really good weekend was TJ McCants in right field. Obviously 3 home runs from TJ, including 2 on Friday night. And then the outstanding catch going to the line where he slid and caught the ball. So TJ also had a really good weekend, but I cannot argue whatsoever with Kemp Alderman this week. On the broadcast, they were talking about Player of the Week honors, and I sure hope the SEC office awards him with that this weekend or this week.
Yeah, I could not imagine you can possibly go through the list of what happened this weekend and not put him in that mix. And TJ was going to be my secondary pick as well because I had a great weekend. So I mean, but Kemp, country strong is the term I like to use for both Kemp and Calvin Harris. The guys, they can look like they hit a routine pop fly and it goes 400 feet. It's just unbelievable the power that they have, and they are clearly not the pitchers are not fans of facing them at the plate, especially in big situations. TJ's really having a great year so far. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from him. A lot less chase from him than we saw last year at some of these pitches as well. So he's really maturing at the plate. So I'm liking that as well. Still has that on occasion, but everybody does. I'm sure I would do it if I was up there at the plate. So I'm not going to by any means judge him. But I'm really liking what I'm seeing from him. Great weekend, as you did mention there, Chris. But Kemp with the walk-off homer yesterday and just the amount of power that he's got and the amount of home runs he hit this weekend, you just can't argue with that. Ethan Leger had a great day today with his 4 RBIs out of the 6 runs. So congrats to Ethan for a great day as well. And again, Nick and Chris, y'all both have said this before. 1 through 9, there is not an easy out in this Ole Miss lineup. And you would think with who they lost last year, you were going to see probably a couple of holes this season. But you just really haven't. The way that Mike Bianco and his staff have got these guys at the plate, their discipline is there, their ability to watch for their pitch, wait for their pitch. Kemp mentioned it last night post-game. I was expecting a cutter low and away. Well, guess what he got? A cutter low and away. That tells you that they are disciplined, that they know what they're looking for. They have their scouting reports on these pitchers. And that just tells you the job that Mike and his staff are doing, teaching these guys in practice and studying these guys and bringing the team up to speed on here's what to expect. That's a hard job. I can't imagine having to go through whoever you're playing for a 3-game weekend series. Here's every pitcher on that team, and here's what we're going to have to expect from each and every guy if they bring this guy in and this situation. It takes a lot to be a baseball coach and to be a baseball player. So I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing from those guys in particular. I don't know if you guys have any disagreement with any of that or anything to add, but feel free.
No disagreement. I think Mike Clement does a great job from a hitting perspective. Pitching BP pretty much every day of the guy's life is just incredible. But also to like you said, Austin, to know exactly what pitch, and Kemp talked about that in postgame. Him and Clem had a conversation about what pitch was going to come, and it was that cutter. And so, Clem's baseball knowledge is just just incredible to know what pitches are going to come at what time, and to be able to prepare the hitters for those kind of situations is beyond my understanding.
Well, and before we go into our next segment, because that one, I mean, you really can't wrap it up any better than that, as the way Chris just did. We're going to talk about our great friends at Dead Soxy, and you guys need to get on this deal right here. I mentioned it in our last show as well, but you guys need to get on this. Did you know that you can grab a free pair of limited edition Juice Kiffin socks while supplies last when you become a Dead Soxy Plus member? You guys need to check this out. I'm telling you, if you are a fan of Dead Soxy like we all are, and I know you guys that watch are, you don't want to miss this. You can join the subscription. You'll get 25% off and free shipping on all purchases site-wide. And then you can use the code RebelWalk and get 25% off every purchase on the site as well. So don't forget about that. And each month, you're going to receive a brand new Ole Miss sock co-designed by your favorite player, and they will get 50% of the profit. How about that? So a great deal there. Get your free socks. Add the socks from the Ole Miss NIL subscription to your cart. Your free pair will automatically appear, and there are no membership fees ever. Head over to deadsoxy.com and check out DS Plus and get on board with that, because not only does it help you get some great socks, it helps out the players on the team as well, and you're going to get to help them out with 50% of the profit. So you want to go check that out. And also our friend Lee with Lee at the Beach and Remax of Orange Beach. Be sure, if you are in need of a home, or maybe you have the money to get a vacation home, maybe we'll get there one day. I'm not there yet, but I'm hoping. If you need a vacation home down there, whatever the case may be, go to check her out. Remax of Orange Beach. Her and her team have years upon years of experience in the real estate business and the real estate market, and they will help you out in whatever your real estate needs are. And she can help you out with any questions you have. She's on Twitter at Lee at the Beach. You can check her out. Remax of Orange Beach. Check her out as well for all of your real estate needs. And with that, it's now time to go around the SEC. Now, guys, it was an interesting weekend just due to the fact that it was a lot of doubleheaders yesterday with the weather. So a lot of teams finished their series out yesterday, and there were some upsets in the SEC yesterday as well. The team that Ole Miss will be playing next weekend, Vanderbilt, they were victim of one of those upsets today as LMU knocked them off 9-6. So that's something to keep an eye on as well. Mississippi State did survive their doubleheader yesterday, winning both of those games. LSU continues to have your guys. Tommy White. I hate to talk great about another team's player because but you just can't help it. We saw him last year at NC State. But have you guys been watching what Tommy White is doing down there on the Bayou? Because it's insane.
It's really incredible. That whole LSU lineup is a lot like ours in a lot of ways, that there's no easy outs. 36 runs on the weekend, and they only played 21 innings. They run ruled Samford, I think it was, so probably a low D1, high D2 opponent. I can't remember where Samford is anymore with conference realignment and everything else like that. But they got run ruled in each of their games. So LSU's got a lot of big sticks.
Yeah, and then you throw Dylan Cruz in there, and you're talking about two very difficult outs. Obviously, he's always in the conversation for SEC Player of the Year. We'll see them later down the road. I don't want to start talking LSU, but just couldn't. He hit a monster grand slam today. You just can't overlook him and what he's doing down there at LSU. One of the victims of upset yesterday was Auburn. They lost to Southeastern Louisiana. Can't make fun of them too much, though, because they got us last year. So that's a pretty good team down there with the Lions. And they were one of the upsets. Charleston Southern got the best of Georgia yesterday. Columbia just destroyed Alabama in game 2, 15-3. So that was another upset down there. That was one of Alabama's only 2 losses on the season. So a few upsets around the SEC. But as the standings are right now, guys, the SEC West is shaping up to be quite a race. There are quite a few teams right there with each other. Bama, or LSU rather, 15-1, Bama 15-2, Ole Miss 14-2, Arkansas 13-2, Auburn 12-3, A&M 12-4, and State 11-5. No clear winner in the SEC West so far.
It's really interesting that they keep showing the coaches poll graphic from preseason on the network broadcast. And I'm not trying to say that they shouldn't, because that obviously is a valid poll, but perhaps, and this is just an idea, we should take an SEC coaches poll after the first 4 weekends of the season and then see where people lay, because I think it's going to be a lot different, a more true representation of where people are currently in the season.
Yeah, and you also have to think that last year conference play changed things in a hurry, even for Ole Miss. I mean, things did not look good there for a while. So you get the bearing of what you think is going to happen after the first 4 weeks. I agree with that, because you really not. This is not a knock on most of the teams that SEC teams play in their initial schedule, but they're not usually a bunch of powerhouses on the schedule throughout that non-conference schedule. Now, Ole Miss did have a ranked series win over Maryland. They played Maryland 4 times. Purdue is a really good team. They were leading the Big Ten offensively coming into this series this weekend. So not playing a bunch of deadbeats per se, but also it's hard to get a true gauge of what the team is made of on that non-conference schedule. But you can at least get a better idea once they finish that, because has the team won or are they losing a lot of games? Because where would you put Vanderbilt at the beginning of the season compared to where they are now? Same with Mississippi State. Where are they now? It's been a struggle for those two teams a little bit, but you feel that they're going to turn things around. There's just too much talent on those teams. We're going to find out about Vanderbilt next weekend. But before we get there, we do have a date on Tuesday down in Jacksonville, Alabama, with Jacksonville State. Now, Jacksonville State leaves a bad taste in most Ole Miss fans' mouth on the football side from a few years ago. This is not a team that's afraid to play SEC teams in baseball either. They've already played Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn this year. They beat Georgia in the first game. They lost the next two. They lost to Alabama. They lost to Auburn. But Ole Miss will be the 4th SEC squad they have played this season. They are 6-10 so far on the young season down there at Jacksonville State. But, guys, anything that you guys would be, I guess, it's hard to know about a team like Jacksonville State. They're clearly not afraid to play SEC teams. They've already beaten Georgia, who's got a good offense. If I'm Ole Miss, you don't overlook this team and start thinking ahead to Vanderbilt. But you guys thought, Nick, we'll start with you. Your thoughts on the matchup with Jacksonville State briefly.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you can't overlook them. It's still another opportunity to get some guys, some at-bats, and, some pitchers that might not have pitched a ton. But regardless, you play the game to win it. So, Bianco, he's going to run out the best 9 and who he feels is going to give him the best shot to win. But, yeah, you can't go down there. I believe it's an away game, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you can't go down there on a midweek and let them beat you at their place, And or either way, whether it's in Oxford or in Jacksonville State, you can't let them beat you. Yeah, you can't. We're going to find out this weekend what we're really made of, but you got to take care of what's in front of you first, and that's beating Jacksonville State.
The other thing that we're going to face all year long is we're the defending national champs. And so anytime the national champs, you're playing them either home or on the road, we're going to get teams' best efforts. And so I expect the best effort that Jacksonville State can put up on Tuesday night. And, they want to hang that skin on the wall saying we beat the national champions. So I would not take this game lightly. Obviously, we should win just based upon the fact that we're an SEC school and we're the defending national champs. But it's baseball and it's midweek baseball, so we can't take it for granted. They're going to be up to play.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas State played us well at the beginning of the season. Louisiana Tech played us really well, obviously, and they were certainly playing up, and that's a good team at Louisiana Tech as well. And you're seeing some of these midweek games, these guys aren't throwing their bullpen at you either. They're throwing some of their better starters in some of these games. They're wanting to win these games, so you don't always get that either. So I'm very interested to see if Ole Miss can go down there, maybe make it a quick game. We saw a few run rules in the midweeks, but again, we weren't the defending national champions last year. We are this year. But then after that, you're going to have the real first test, as Nick said, and that is in Nashville to open conference play with Vanderbilt, who so far is 12-5 on the young season. So a little bit of more losses, I guess, than we're used to seeing from Vandy in the early part of the season. But that is not to say that they are a team that is down. This is a Tim Corbin coached baseball team. And anytime the name Tim Corbin is involved, it's going to be a solid, fundamentally sound baseball team that you absolutely cannot overlook. They're only batting .247 as a team, but their pitching staff has an ERA of just 3.32. Chris, your thoughts first on this one, on the Vandy series, and what you'll be looking for when the Rebs head to Nashville.
Yeah, the name I'm looking for on the Vandy on the Vandy dugout, obviously going to play center field, is Enrique Bradfield. If you haven't seen Enrique Bradfield play before, he's really a treat. If we let him on the base paths, it's going to be difficult to get him off the base paths. He probably is going to try to steal second. He's got, I believe, over 100 stolen bases now for his career. So really, really fast guy. Going to go in the first round in the MLB draft. So that's what I'm looking for.
Nick?
Yeah, they knocked us out of the SEC tournament. So I don't like to use revenge a lot, but hey, they almost ended our season last year. Had we won that game, a bunch of us probably would have felt better come Selection Sunday about getting into the tournament. But yeah, first big test, and like I agree with Chris about Enrique Bradfield. He's generational talent. The speed is really something, and you can't cut him short. He can hit too. And that's the thing. Once he gets on base, like he said, it's going to be a problem. You're going to have to really pay close attention. And then another thing with that is the pitch clock. You can't all the pickoffs and taking the time, fill in with the runner. And so he's probably going to use that to his advantage a little bit.
Yeah, Bradfield's a terror on the base paths. There's just no other good way to put it. The guy is a distraction. When he is on the base paths, the pitcher is always going to be thinking about him. You have no choice. And then Calvin Harris, who I don't want to say is new behind the plate, but obviously Hayden Dunhurst got most of the reps behind the plate last year. And Harris is still kind of working into that full-time role with Dunhurst gone this season. So Bradfield will test him if he does get on the base. Last year, the phrase "don't run on Dunn" was very popular with Ole Miss fans, and for good reason. Dunhurst had a cannon. Not to say that Harris doesn't, but it's not quite as well used as Dunhurst was last year. So these base runners are going to test Calvin Harris's arm if they do get on base. But the two consistent starters for Vanderbilt this year have been Carter Holton and Hunter Owen, both of whom, Holton with a 2.21 ERA, Owen with a 3.2. Both those guys have pitched one's 20 innings, one's 19. They have Holton has 25 strikeouts to 7 walks. Owen has 24 strikeouts to 8 walks. These guys do not allow a lot of hits in the games. They strike out a lot of batters. Each, respectively, they have 16 hits and 17 hits. They've given up a piece. So those two guys are going to be guaranteed. You're going to face both of those on the weekend. Not sure who the third guy will be. There's been kind of a committee after that. But those two in particular are the ones for sure you're going to face. Vanderbilt's pitching is always good. That's one of the best parts of their game has always been their pitching, and they usually have a really good defense. Now, they've lost some players from that team last year. But what's the worst part of facing Vanderbilt? We all know the answer to this. The worst part of facing Vanderbilt in Vanderbilt is the Whistler, and we all know he's going to be out in force. We're going to have to mute our TVs, or if you're there, you're going to have to bring your earplugs. It's going to be awful. So be prepared, people. You're going to have to deal with not one, but two, most likely, Vanderbilt Whistlers. I do not believe the hoax tweet that went out, several weeks ago. Somebody thought it was funny to make up a joke about the Vanderbilt Whistler passing away. And as much as I can't stand the Vandy Whistler, that's just never appropriate. So let's not give in to things like that. But, guys, it's going to be fun. Fun using the word very loosely when it comes to dealing with the Whistler again. I don't know if Mincy will be there or not, but I haven't heard that he will.
Yeah, I think anytime you start conference play, it's this is where the meat and potatoes are now. Is we're getting into this thing. We're facing competition that's the same or comparable to us, and we start on the road. So let's get after it.
Well, those games, first off, Tuesday's game against Jacksonville State will be at 6 p.m. That will be an ESPN Plus contest for those of you that are able to get that. Of course, you can always listen to it on the radio or the app if you're not able to watch as well, or follow along with the Rebel Walk on Twitter for all of your updates and the stats and all that good stuff. Vanderbilt Thursdays and Fridays game will both be at 6 p.m. Thursday's game will be on ESPNU. Friday will be on SEC Network Plus. Saturday will be at 11 a.m., also on the SEC Network, not the SEC Network Plus. And again, that is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. So let me emphasize that'll be the first time this year Ole Miss has played a Thursday through Saturday series up there in Nashville next week. So it's going to be a short turnaround from Tuesday to Thursday. So that's something else to keep an eye on. We hope that Vera, who will be starting on Tuesday, will get some innings out under his belt and keep the bullpen fresh for that weekend series against Vanderbilt. Any final thoughts from either of you on what we saw this weekend or what we're looking forward to next weekend?
Nick, you go.
Just ready to get into conference play. This is what we're going to find out what we're made of, and ready to get after it.
Yeah, I'm equally as excited as Nick is. I think it was a good weekend tune-up against a good Purdue team. We got taken to the wire yesterday. I think that was good for our guys to have that experience where it wasn't just kind of a walkover, where it was the other team was getting outs and everything else like that. So we got challenged a little bit this weekend, and so I was happy to see that our guys responded well to that, and just looking forward to Vanderbilt next week.
Yeah, a lot of good challenges early in the season. A lot of good teams we don't hardly ever get to see playing some Big Ten competition as well early. So it's all out of the way now. And coming up after Tuesday, you're going to see what it's all about. And that's SEC play starting on Thursday at Vanderbilt. We will have a show for you, of course, following the conclusion of that series. So stay tuned for an announcement on that. But until next time, thanks to Chris and Nick as always, and thanks to you guys for bearing with me throughout a move with my bad background and bad shirt today. But I promise it'll be fixed by next weekend. It'll be here at the new house, and I'll be good to go. But thank you guys so much as always. You guys always both do well. I appreciate your contributions to the show. I know all of our viewers do as well, because I could not do it without you guys. And we appreciate everyone who watches. Until next time, hotty toddy, have a great rest of your Sunday evening.